Yo, JD here, Limitless, and as you can see, we are back on F1 2021 here today, and we arrive at round 4 of the British Racing Series BRS at Baku, Azerbaijan, which I don't think really needs an introduction to know that this is a track that has not been kind to me in the past. Despite me really enjoying driving on this track, I really do find it to be one of my favorite tracks to drive. The pace seems to be quite good as well, quite often, but nothing ever just comes fully together, which is just very frustrating. And you should be able to see the championship standings. We had a very dominant drive at Monaco last time out, probably one of my best drives that I've done for quite a considerable time. Just the perfect level of consistency, zero mistakes, and taking full advantage of the clean air we have. So you can see, arriving here at Q1, we are through pretty nicely into the Q2, but I wasn't feeling that confident for this race, to be honest. I didn't really have much time to prepare at all, and when I did the practice sessions with a few of the guys in here, I've seen people say that the people aren't quick enough, but believe me, the people in here are rapid. If you race them online, you will certainly know. And people such as Luciano, Noah, Snipes, Bernie, Kimi, MBSFN, Mers, there's some really fast people, and particularly in a race situation. And you can see here, we literally just scraped through into Q3 because we want to try and start on the medium tire, and my pace just wasn't that good. I just wasn't feeling that confident at this time, so I'm really gonna have to try and get a good Q3 lap here. But in practice, I think Luciano was going faster than me. I'm same with Kimi and those people as well. Unfortunately, Noah was unable to make this race, and this is one of his best tracks, and he's on the controller, which is notoriously good around this circuit. So that's a bit of a shame, but he will be back next week. We do have the likes of Radionics who have returned. And you can see our banker lap was fairly good. We did a 37.0, but I knew there was quite a bit of time to improve in that. So coming through into turn 1, we're doing this quite nicely. So pretty much exactly level way with on the previous lap, but going through here, we just missed the apex ever so slightly, and you can see just the smallest of margins make such a big difference, and we're about 800ths down on the fast side, but all under braking. You can see just the commitment, we've actually managed to gain all of that time back, but then we missed this apex very slightly, and you can see now it's gone up to 600ths again. So it's really a game of cat and mouse around this track. It's all about the risk versus the reward around this circuit, but you can see again we have made up some time for this section. I knew particularly in the last sector we could make up a lot of time, and going through into here, we've just about kept it the same. And through into here now, you can see we gained a lot of time, because on the previous lap, I think there was a car ghosted parked in the middle of that corner going through the castle section, which is probably the worst corner for that to happen on the Canada. Coming into here, in qualifying, we actually take this curb, so we're taking a big risk doing that, but I do find it to be slightly faster than missing the curb, as we do a purple middle sector. So that was a pretty nice middle sector. I think there could still be some improvements. This last sector is all about just threading the car, and my car wasn't the fastest on the straight, and I said this on my stream, I didn't think the setup was completely perfect for this race. I feel there's definitely a little bit more room for improvement. It didn't feel 100% comfortable, but it is enough for a provisional pole, which is very crucial. And after that Q2, that's definitely needed, because I wasn't confident into setting those up. But you can see we just about get poles, so 2 other people in the 36s as well. So less than 2 tenths between the top 3. So I was pretty happy with that, and we're starting on a medium tyre as well. But we have Snipes behind, who is on the softs, so he used that in Q2. So all it is now is just trying to keep it consistent in the race, kind of like Monaco in a way, where you've got to avoid having damage at all costs. And especially with Noah not here, and he returns next week, I really try and have to take as much advantage as I can, as we've got 5 bites here. So as they go out now, trying to get a good start, he is on the soft tyre, but we just get an absolutely perfect start. That is textbook on how you want to do a start. They're probably one of the best starts I've had on this game so far, and I really expected him to get a much better launch with those soft tyres, but we controlled that very well, and we're exactly where we want to be in this race. So you can tell by the video title, it's quite a long one, because there are quite a few things that happen in this race which you are going to see shortly. But I always say it to people, when you're watching on the stream, it looks much easier than it is, and I can tell you now, my driving style looks quite lethargic and quite smooth and stuff as well, but I am working very, very hard, and the concentration you really need to keep up at all times, especially going through corners such as this. So my tactic was just to try and get out of the DRS zone as quick as I could if I was able to, especially out of the medium runner of Bernie in P3, who had really good pace, to be honest. But Radionix and Luciano, they had a pretty bad Q3. They just didn't get the laps together at all, which is very, very hard to do around this track. But we just need to try and build this gap as much as we can, and really just then keep it consistent. So not pushing 100%, because I want to make sure I don't hit the walls or anything. But also with the setup, I wasn't fully comfortable with it, so I didn't know the exact limitations of when and where the tyres would start to feel bad. So the strategy I had a good idea of, I was planning to go medium soft if there was no safety cars here. So that was really the plan. But you can see Snipes has actually stayed with me pretty nicely so far in this race. So the objective here is to try and get out of that medium runners DRS. That medium runners DRS is exactly what I just said there of Bernie. So trying to create more than a second between Snipes and Bernie, just so then he falls back into the clutches of the pack, and he is my real closest threat in this race at the moment as things stand. Because if there's no safety car, Snipes is going to have to pit early. He might get a bit of an undercut, but then we should be very strong at the end of the race. So the plan is just to try and keep them at an arm's reach all the time. I'm using the DRS here just to deter him from overtaking me, because I was a little bit slow in a straight line. Definitely could have tweaked this up to be a bit faster. It's definitely lacking down the straight a little bit, so I was really just relying on the downforce in mid corners. But you can see here now, we are starting to pull that gap. That gap is well over a second between second and third, so we've done that objective. Now is to try and break the DRS of Snipes. But you can see he's very, very fast in a straight line. We're very consistent. We did a 41.2 for the second consecutive lap in a row, so the consistency is definitely key. But it was on this lap, this is where the softs will start to deteriorate just a little bit. I knew they could do 10 laps, but really from lap 4-5, that's where the drop off starts to begin, and I was hoping that the mediums would then start to take over. So I'm driving really well here, very consistent, just driving within my limits, definitely for sure. But you can see, go for this midfield section, this is where the downforce I would be hoping to help me. You can see we get a very good exit coming off this corner, so I sense an opportunity to get out of this DRS zone now. So just trying to keep the tyres under control as well, because tyre temps are a little bit of an issue, and the wear is quite significant around here. But going through the seekers of corners, we're just absolutely nailing this, and I believe he's made a little bit of a mistake as well, so his tyres might be starting to go, and we have got out of this DRS zone, which is really, really going to help us. So all we have to do now is just maintain this good pace that we're showing. You can see we're avoiding that corner where I mounted in quali. We're completely avoiding it for the race, because I just didn't want to run the risk of damage by really just the risk and reward factor of gaining maybe a tenth or two a lap, but the risk of getting damaged and your race being completely over. I decided to just play it a bit safe, going through that corner. But as we come across the line now, you can see the gap is 1.2 seconds. You can see he's a little bit faster on the straight here, but we're going to have the downforce, and you can see the gap is starting to eke out very, very slowly. As we come through into lap 6, you can see the gap is about the same again. So going up about a 10th a lap at this stage here. But as we come towards the end of lap 6, Jeff told me there's an incident that has been cleared. Is that going to be a safety car? And that releases the virtual safety car. We just missed the pit entry. But since I won the medium tyres, I wasn't really too bothered about it at all. Because if you're someone pitted for hards now, I should be able to pull away and then maybe even pit and catch them up on the softs at the end. But as we're not paying attention, the full safety car now comes out. So it's decided to switch from virtual to full. So now we are definitely going to pit, because people on the softs, they could go on mediums to the end of the race. That is actually very possible, because the wear was about a 3.1, 3.2% a lap. So it's very, very possible, but they might be struggling at the end of the race. But since there's a safety car, we're going to have to spend another lap behind this. That's going to limit the amount of tyre wear they are going to suffer. So we decided to put on the hard tyres now, because even if they put on the mediums, these tyres should be coming back into effect towards the end of the race. So you can see here, we're preparing to restart again, and we get a pretty good restart here. So no pressure really from behind, and we've got some people in front who haven't actually pitted yet. So they started on mediums, but they've decided to stay out. So if it stays like this and there's no safety car, these guys all have to pit again. So I'd say we're really in a net P1 right here now, but we do have ABR Ryan behind, who is on the medium tyres. So he's going to be posing a little bit of a threat at this stage of the race here. But we're just going to do the same thing as we did in the first couple of laps to Snipes, just making sure he's not going to be in a position to overtake, because I really wanted to try and dictate the pace. But you can just see in the straight line, we are struggling just a little bit. But you can see the tyre wear is very durable in these tyres. And as Ryan, is he going to go for a move down inside, so I'm putting on the overtake, and he decides to not poke his nose down, because that would have been very costly to the gap for the guys up ahead. So he's really close up behind now. I don't believe we're going to have DRS at this stage, which we don't, but we get a very good exit, and just using that DRS just to make sure we're getting back within a second of the guys up ahead, but then to also make sure we're defending from the cars behind. So you can see we have the DRS enabled now, and all it really is at this stage is just to try and really just stay with these guys, waiting for until they pit. But another safety car comes out again, which is just very, very frustrating. So we're going to decide we're not going to pit. These guys up ahead are going to pit, so they are on the medium, so they can't go on softs, so they're probably going to have to go on the hard tyres. And these hard tyres are relatively fresh. You can see they're only on about 13% wear. It's not really going to be a big difference. But MBSFN has actually decided to stay out. He hasn't actually stopped yet at all here. So we're out behind him, and halfway through the safety car lap,
my game is frozen.
The game decided to freeze.
Baku strikes again.
And I thought that was the curse of Baku striking again.
GG.
But it turns out the whole lobby freezed. So this wasn't just me. So we actually decided to restart the race from the position we're in as a 25% race, starting on any tyre. So we have basically a new race again here. And MBSFN, who didn't even stop, gets to start on pole position. But we get to go back on the medium. So we're going to try a medium to soft strategy. And it's a complete reset again. So we're actually going to be doing more laps than we were supposed to be doing. But these laps here are actually very significant. Now looking back on it, these are the most significant laps, because for some reason I just didn't feel comfortable on this medium tyre. And MBSFN, who's turned into a good friend of mine, he is a very fast driver. I've told this many times in my videos. In qualifying, I think he struggles quite a lot, but in the race, when he's driving well, he's extremely consistent. And he told me he didn't really like this track, but he's driving very well at this stage here. And you can see we're making just a couple of mistakes, just very small mistakes, but they're proving to be very costly, because he's actually got out of the DRS zone. Although we have 3 laps to get within it, that's really not what I need at this stage. But coming through here, if you look at the Delta, he's able to gain so much time going through there. It's absolutely insane. And just as a disclaimer, I run no assist, so obviously no ABS or anything. I know he runs ABS, so I don't know if that corner is particularly good for ABS or anything at all, because if you make one mistake without it, you're just going straight into the wall, and you don't have to worry about lockups with the ABS. So maybe that is why he was gaining a lot of time through that, particularly through that corner. As now I'm coming under attack from miles behind. He decides to stick his nose down the inside because he is on the soft tire, so he really wants to overtake as soon as possible. But this is just costing me. He decides to go down the inside again, and you can see the gap is almost to 2 seconds now between myself and MBSFN, and this is really not helping me. I remember people saying, doing a little bit of backseat driving, because that's what happens when you stream, unfortunately. People saying, why did you let him get away? I wasn't letting him get away. I was actually trying to drive well, but I was just making a few mistakes and being overtaken by Milesley there, where I think on those corners it was a bit, not pointless, but he wasn't far enough along the inside where we're just going to be both losing time. Maybe he should have waited for the DRS or something, or maybe just for a better opportunity where he's not going to lose that much time, because that's actually costs me a lot of time here. And the gap is now 1.6 seconds. You can see the Delta, he's a little bit faster in a straight line as well, so we're having the same issue as he sets the fastest lap of the race. So I told you before this race that we weren't completely comfortable, and I definitely wasn't feeling completely comfortable at this stage. And you can see the gap, we move on to lap 7, it hasn't gone down at all. It's come down by half a tenth, so it's absolutely nothing, and we're running very low on the ERS because I was trying to get back within this DRS zone and I was defending from the cars behind. I wasn't able to save the ERS, and as I said, it was becoming a little bit of a struggle in this race here. So we actually have a really good race on our hands, a race where people probably think it might be comfortable. For me, I can promise you, the only round that has been comfortable is Monaco so far, and that's because I was in the lead with no damage or anything at all, and I think I just drove really well around that track as well. But Bahrain, Spain, and here, it's proving to be definitely a struggle, and I know that he has the pace as well, so we're gonna have to really try and get a move on to get back in this DRS zone. So right here, I'm driving without really thinking of worrying about the damage or anything at all. I'm just trying to get back within this DRS zone as soon as I can, because the longer he's out the DRS zone, the more ERS he is able to save, the more comfortable he is. So I'm going to try and get back within this DRS zone ASAP, use the ERS if I have to, and then try and recover some for the last lap. So that was really the plan at this stage here. But you can see again, he's still very, very fast. Kimi behind is very fast. I think he's one of the fastest drivers in TT around this track as well. So coming through here, I just wasn't really getting the hang of this corner in particular. As I said, I don't know if it's because of the ABS issue or in qualifying I decided to mount it, but in the race it's just too much of a risk. And I think a lot of people in qualifying actually missed that curb as well, so they weren't mounting it like I was. But you can see we're taking a big risk here. We're just using all of my ERS to try and get within this DRS zone, and you can see we're just on the edge of the 1 second delta now. Coming through to here, is it going up to a second? Yes, it did. So we're using a bit of overtake here, but I think we just enough to get back in the DRS zone, and yes, we have. So now we're hopefully going to be able to save the ERS for the next 3 to 4 laps, because we are under 10% ERS. So really struggling with the ERS, and that's because we're running a higher downforce. It's harder to save the ERS, and we've had to just push a lot harder than I really would have liked. I think if there was no safety cars and we were on that medium strategy where we had that gap, could have been a much more comfortable race, I think, for sure. But now we're in a position that we don't really want to be in, because I'm 20%, and I predicted that he was probably having even more ERS than I had at this stage. But you can just see in the straight line, the DRS detection point is actually quite late into a lap, and you're already at your maximum speed. You don't actually gain that much time, and you can see Kimi set the fastest lap behind us, so he's actually closer. Well, he was closer to us than we were to MBSFN, but this is not looking like a good scenario. I wasn't feeling particularly comfortable because, again, we're under the 20% ERS. We're getting closer down into here, but this isn't really an overtaking spot unless you're fully alongside. So we're just going to try and put as much pressure as we can behind him. So I'm just going to try and stay as close as I can, save as much as ERS as possible. And I didn't really want to overtake him at this stage because I just didn't have the ERS. And he's very strong in the last sector, and I believe he was faster in a straight line. So I don't really want to be leading into this last lap. I really want to be as close as I can on the exit going onto that straight, and then having enough ERS to just outpower him down that straight. But it's going through these sequence of corners. I'm quite strong through here, but you're about to see again, if you look at the delta, as we come into this corner, we're just not as good as him going through into these sequence of corners. So about 6 tenths behind coming to straight. He gets a very good exit coming into here. So we're not using any of the overtake because I just didn't want to waste any of the ERS here. Kimi's actually closer to me than I am to MBSFN up ahead of us. And you can see the straight line speed again. The detection point is quite late, and we're just not gaining enough time. We're about 6 or 7 tenths behind, so we're only gaining about 3 tenths down this whole straight, which is probably the longest straight in Formula 1. So we're going to have to be much, much closer than 6 or 7 tenths if we want an opportunity. So the good thing is we are saving a little bit more of the ERS, and now we're on the penultimate lap of this race. Coming through to here, just trying to take a little bit more risk. So the gap is still about 7 tenths. Kimi is actually dropped out of the DRS zone because the pace of MBSFN is actually, I was actually very surprised how fast he was driving here, because I raced with him a lot online, and I know this, supposedly this is one of his weaker tracks. The pace he's got is so strong here, and he's actually even further away now. So we're just trying to avoid using the ERS as much as we can. But if you can see it on the screen, his red light actually starts to flash, which you might hear me say in a minute. I think I did say it already, but his red light was flashing at the end, so I know that he is actually lower than the ERS of me. So all I have to do, if I can just be within 6 tenths of him coming off this last corner, then I think we're going to be able to do enough to take this race, especially when his ERS limiting the red light actually comes into effect. Then we should be getting a lot more speed. So I'm just going to be trying close as I can. So right here, this is fine. This is a really good distance between us. As you can see, Kimi is dropping back quite quickly at the moment, but we just need to be as close as we can coming into our sector. It's a really good braking here, not quite hooking that apex, but its traction is just so good coming through here. Really taking a bit more of a risk, making a little bit of an error, but not too bad. And he gets a really good exit coming off here. He gets a very good exit. So he was almost 8 tenths. So we're going to have to use a little bit of the overtake coming into here. But we need a really good downhill left-hander. And let's see what we do. Coming off the exit here, it's still about 7 tenths. So I don't think we're going to be closer. But coming through into here, we actually get caught on a downshift, which pushes me out wide. He's 8 tenths ahead, and I think you can see when I was shaking my head, I felt, I knew that this was not going to be enough, but his red light is going to be flashing. But you can see we are already under 10% ourselves, as we're going to try to be as close as we possibly can. Can we do it? And just no, we're not going to be close enough. And 0.070. If we were 6 or 7 tenths, that would have been enough. But we had a pretty bad last corner. It wasn't the racing line. I just got caught on a downshift where it didn't downshift as quick as I'd like. That gave me a bit of understeer. And yeah, the smaller submargins can ultimately make a huge, huge difference. But a massive congratulations to him he drove a phenomenal race. He didn't make any mistakes in that race. So a really good job from MBSFN. And I really enjoyed that. For Baku, normally I would always take a second place, but yeah, it's a track that just nothing ever completely clicks for me. But still, with Noah being missing this round, it's good points for the championship, which will be updated in the next video. But as I can see here, yeah, 0.07 difference, which is crazy. So I really thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I will be doing a new league on PC next Sunday. So every weekend, Saturday and Sunday, I will be streaming league racing, and that should be a pretty good one, something completely different. And I also want to say thank you to the new extra rotation members, as you can see on the screen here, for Damien, Rise, Ovis, Chrissy Tim M8, Ow, Colombian Nut, Michael Cross, F1 Simu, Smalley, Cole Landis, and Gurney, or Genie, if I can even say that right. Thank you for becoming the part of the extra rotation club. Thank you for everyone who's been supporting the channel as well. And if you join my Discord, I will be doing PC lobbies this week, so if you want a priority invite for that, make sure you become a member. Hope you found it useful so far, and I will catch you very soon. Peace.